Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Shelby Oaks 2025, the Chris Stuckman production, director, writer. You might even be a producer on here, I'm not even sure, but I know Mike Flanagan jumped on here as a producer as well. Neon picked it up about a year ago, threw a couple extra bucks at it so they could bump up the horror graphics and, the CGI and that type of stuff. And so it's starring Camille Sullivan, Brendan Sexton III, Keith David's in this, Robin Bartlett, and Michael Beach. Cinematographed by Andrew Scott Baird. Sitting at about runtime of 91 minutes. It was released a couple different times. Of course, it was like smaller releases previously before it was picked up and finally released in October 24th, 2025 in the States. And so, quick synopsis right here. This is a continuation. This is what it's about. A continuation of an online series of fictional found footage videos about a paranormal investigative team named the Paranormal Paranoids, which also starred Dern. The film follows a woman, played by Miss Sullivan, determined to find her sister, who went missing while investigating the mysterious abandoned town of Shelby Oaks. Now, I mentioned this in the short, this is the previous YouTuber, reviewer, and all of that good stuff that everyone on YouTube and the film community has been following for quite a while, Chris Stuckman. He has been reviewing movies and other media for I think well over 10 years, and he finally made his way onto the big screen. And so this is also a story by Stuckman and Samantha Elizabeth as well. So I had a lot of medium to high expectations to see what he could bring to the screen. Right off the bat, this is an imperfect movie, and I will say that people that are in the know of the production side of this, I think, are going to be a little bit more lenient towards reviewing this as opposed to people that are unfamiliar with the property or unfamiliar with Chris Stuckman. An average moviegoer is probably going to be a lot more harsher on this than somebody that knows Chris. I'm even calling him Chris because I feel like I have a friend that's a friend with him. So I have mutual friends that are friends with him. I know people that are on YouTube that are invested in the movie. So I just want to divulge all of that so that you understand that I'm trying to come at it with a fair, unbiased opinion with this. And so it is an imperfect movie. We are going to kind of do like a non-spoiler section real quick. And if there is some spoilery stuff that we want to talk about, then we can jump in there too. But this is going to be kind of a condensed review, nothing too crazy. Should you see it? Should you not see it? Now, first thing, as a horror film, it's a found footage in the first half. Second half kind of turns into more of a conventional style looking horror film. And just saying that alone is pretty damn good. I've seen bad horror films. I've seen the latter Freddy versus Jason's, the latter Elm Streets, the latter Halloweens. I've seen bad horror films. This is not one of them. Now, is there things wrong with this? Yeah, I think that there are a handful of not just scenes, but things that happen from does this make sense to be even on, does this make sense for the main character to be doing this? Should they be going down this hall? Why do they still have blood on their face? Why are they doing these things? Why aren't they having more authorities involved? Why aren't they having a friend walk with them in the dark woods or something like that? There's a lot of times I'm questioning the motives of this character that we're following. And I think that the one thing you have to know about this is you're going in seeing kind of an unconventional horror film by somebody that has seen tons and tons of movies and horror films and has reviewed a whole bunch of stuff. So there's slight bits of like homage and Easter eggs, and you're like, oh shit, this is clearly picked from this movie. This is clearly picked from that movie. And was saying that I think the more knowledge you have within the horror cinema base, you're going to have more of a delight watching this. Now, if you're just going in trying to watch standard horror film and you're like, I just want something spooky to put on, I think it's a little bit more of a thinker than that, and it's probably going to be dinged harsher for that on the critic side. So let me explain that. So it's sitting at a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb, and 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I think that's right in the middle of, like, critics are saying it's about a 6 out of 10, which is honestly what I'm going to say it is. And IMDb is a little bit more user-based, and I think they're going to go more with like a 5 out of 10 because they're going to be a little bit less satisfied. I think they're going to have more critiques, that kind of thing. Now, a couple of things before we kind of get into a little bit more nitty-gritty of it. I think there's a lot of cool and interesting shot selections that are chosen throughout this movie. I think Chris Stuckman shows that he can clearly direct the hell out of a movie, even that it's his first film, so give him a little bit of leeway to kind of get his bearings in a row. I think there was kind of behind the scenes stuff that I had heard that this was going to be a little bit more of a messier production than they had originally intended, which is totally fine. You know, was having it be a first debut and having not really knowing how the gears turn in the movie making world, and just seeing how they are going, how he is going as a filmmaker from being a reviewer into actually being the creator. And so there is plenty of good there's plenty of meat on the bone from showing that this is clearly someone that is inspired. He has the chops. He wants to do more. Again, this is picked up by Neon and I believe Mike Flanagan as well. I'm not sure if they're tied together at all, so I'm just going to say that they're separate. But yeah, looking at this film, it is, I'm not going to play the sound and everything from it, but it's a scary and unnerving film. I wouldn't necessarily say it's more of I'd say it's more of a thriller, less of a horror for most of it. And there's several times in this movie I was like, wow, that was quite effective. Like, I was thoroughly shocked. It didn't feel like I was watching. Going into it, it felt a little cheaper. The more you watch it, the more it feels like, oh, this has got some real texture to it. I think that it progressively gets better throughout watching it. There are some lulls from there are some pacing issues. There are some not continuity issues, but I think like you're wondering, why is she doing all of this alone? Why is she trying to find her sister and one of the scariest looking places? Why are they, going to some of these places abandoned and whatnot? And so I'm just like, oh my God. And so yeah, so we're following Mia, who is being interviewed for a documentary about Riley, her sister's disappearance, who was kind of like the leader of the paranormal paranoids, which kind of sounds more like a band than it does like a YouTube. I don't know, but I think that Sullivan carries this fucking film. I think that if Sullivan didn't give this good of a performance, then it would not land nearly to that degree. Now, with saying that, I think that the script that Stuckman and Samantha Elizabeth have given her, it could have been workshopped more. I heard some other individuals on YouTube talking about like Stuckman would be really good as a director, maybe taking like an adaptation of someone else's script, someone else's book. I would love to see an adaptation of something that he was able to do, bring in for his sophomoric cinematic experience, filmography, whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, clearly you can see that there are amazing shot selections for the trailer, and I found myself, gripped at the points I needed to be gripped. Now, was it the reasoning of why people were doing things that kind of threw me out, maybe a little bit. I was like, girl, this doesn't make any sense. Like, it feels a little bit like the trope of, like, I not trying to bring old race in this, but only white people be going into some of these scary looking places. I was like, I wouldn't be doing that. I was like, I'm mixed, so I hope I can say that. But I was like, nobody would be going into some of these places alone. And a couple of times things are happening so fast on screen, and with the pacing of it, it felt a little bit like they would, have a little bit an interview. Someone would be watching a television, so something, or not television, but they were watching behind the scenes stuff, or they would be watching the plot unfold via, opening a photo album, looking at a television. Sorry, television. I'm talking about a video that found footage film. There's just several times I was like, okay, so this is not exploitating, but it's explaining the plot from showing, not telling. But it does feel like, who's taking these photos? Who's doing? Who's recording all of this? Like, what is the production behind what was happening here? And so it left me with a little bit more questions than it did answers. So, yeah, I think that would definitely recommend it. Boom, bang, bang. You're like, what's happening? Sorry, I had to go do something, came back. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, we would definitely recommend this movie from just understanding that, Chris Stuckman is coming at this with a very low budget. This is his first movie, directorial debut, produced it. I think he's an executive producer. Well, he's a producer. And then, of course, he's got a co-writer on there, Samantha Elizabeth. Written by him, directed by him. It's just impressive from that angle. Now, I've said it earlier that I think that the critics are going to be a little bit less harsh, and I think the average Joe viewers of just going to the movies and stuff like that are going to be a little bit more like, what the hell is going on here? This feels a little bit of a mishmash of a movie, but I feel like the more you understand behind the scenes and how it was created, that you'll have a little bit more appreciation for it. I think that's kind of the word I need to look for. So yeah, anyways, the atmosphere, I think that's the biggest thing, is that he evokes a very interesting atmosphere in his movie. When I say interesting, I mean thrilling, horrifying in some parts, unnerving, I think is possibly a good word. It's a little bit hard to pin this movie down, because I really do, the more I think about the movie, the more I'm like, somewhat critical, and then somewhat I'm more like, not forgiving, but I'm like, wow, this was actually done pretty well. And so first half versus second half, I was actually thinking about this in between my little gap, and when I switched up, I definitely think the first half of this movie is the more evoking of the Blair Witch Project, and it has a little bit more of a low budget feel. Second half is when the things start getting a little bit crazier, when people are in full-on horror mode, full-on creep mode, going to creepy places, visiting different things that are like trying to figure out the narrative structure of what's happening and whatnot. So yeah, I would, it's a light recommend in theaters, but definitely check it out if it hits the Netflix or the Shudder or whatever streaming service it ends up going on. Rent it, help a young filmmaker out. I think that's at the least that you're helping with, helping progress his career into the cinematic landscape. I definitely want to see Chris direct a Mike Flanagan show, or a couple episodes, or another movie. I would definitely like to see that. Let's get into this review in a spoilery detail, so that we can kind of talk about this from what worked, what didn't work, through the whole thing. So 6 out of 10. You know what to do. Luck It Out Podcast. Check us out on YouTube, Twitch, all over the internet, social medias. Luck It Out Podcast, just about on everything. Thank you for listening, watching Luck It Out Podcast, and we are jumping into the spoilery section. Spoilery Shelby Oaks section. So, in between the gap, actually, I was watching a Double Toasted review, and it was interesting. The two of my, some of my oldest favorite co-hosts. Sorry, co-hosts. They're not my co-hosts. They're hosts on Double Toasted, but two podcasters I tremendously respect, Corey Coleman and Martin Thomas, split right down the middle. It was not enough for Corey, and it was just enough for Martin. And again, Martin does not align himself as a quote-unquote horror aficionado. And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a horror aficionado either. But I've seen a lot of horror movies to the point where it kind of takes a lot for me to get scared of a horror movie. And the more I look at this and the more I'm kind of breaking it down just with you guys, it's definitely more of a suspense filled film at the beginning, and it turns into I don't know about a more generic horror film, but there are a lot of tropes and Easter eggs that you will have seen in other films. And the one that I specifically saw, we're in the spoiler section now, is obviously the first half feels very much Blair Witch Project. The second half feels a lot like Psycho to me. I know that there are elements of the more paranormal type stuff and cults and rituals, demons. It's a big smorgasbord of stuff. It feels kind of like when you're ordering like the appetizer at I don't know, seafood restaurant or something like that, and you're getting a mix of some crab cakes, you're getting some flounder, you're getting a little bit of green shrimp, you're getting a little bit of all these different types of sprinkles of what you're trying, different things on this platter, on this horror film platter. And I think it generally all, works pretty good once you have it. But there are elements of like, all right, well, that didn't make much sense. Why is she still doing this? One of the main characters. So let me kind of go through it real quick. Riley Older's 12 years later, after the disappearance of everyone, the bodies are eventually found. One or two cameras recovers containing terrifying footage of Riley. 12 years later, Riley's older sister Mia is interviewed for a documentary about Riley's disappearance. I feel like the documentary entire portion of the beginning did not really work for me as strongly as when it transforms into what I'd say is a more conventional cinematic horror film. I felt like we could have just completely sidewinded, whatever you want to call it, the documentary style, because it mostly feels like the movie doesn't know if it wants to be a found footage film or if it wants to be kind of a more conventional horror film, and it's a weird in-between mix of it. Work for some people, won't work for others. So anyways, she's interviewed for the documentary about Riley's disappearance. Mia asserts that in belief that Riley is still alive. In my head, I was like, how are we going to end this movie? How are we going to end this movie? And I think the ending is probably going to be the biggest issue for the most people. The way that it ultimately ends is not super satisfying for me as, I'd say, as just a conventional horror film watcher. But I think that if maybe watching it a few times with a couple extra rewatches, you could be like, okay, so this makes logistical sense that this would happen. And so we'll get to it in a second. So she asserts that her belief that Riley is still alive and recounts that Riley is often experiencing night terrors as a child in perpetuity, believing something was watching her. There's like a split second where you see what is called the monster of Terran. Um, Big goblin looking ass dude that's got these crazy looking eyes, and he's like looking at you, and he's like me in the night, and there's so many scenes where you're just kind of like, wait, is that Taryn in the background? Taryn, what the hell are you doing back there, son? Get your ass. And I was like, uh I was it was one of those things where I was like, someone turn on the fucking lights. Like, sometimes I will say my movie theater has kind of darker bulbs on their projectors, and they are not super bright. So I was like, Taryn? I felt like an old man. I was like, Taryn, is that you? I was like, I can't tell if that's Taryn or not. And then sometimes when Mia and Riley are young, and we're seeing like split second horror, flashes of Taryn coming up on screen, I think I blinked and I didn't see Taryn. Like, it literally happened that fast. There's a couple times where I was like, I kind of want to see what's going on my phone just to kind of quick check. And right as I was about to do it, like, something crazy would happen. And I was like, okay, it feels a little bit like this was timed almost to the point where they're like, all right, the audience is going to be getting a little bit bored here. We need something crazy to happen quickly. A dog run through the screen. Uh-oh, something scary happened. Uh-oh, boom, someone shoots themselves in the head. Like kind of when they feel like the movie is kind of coming down like a lull, it feels like, oh, something crazy is about to happen. All right. You got my attention, Stuckman. So, let me see. Okay, so Mia's marriage to her husband, Robert, is under strain in the wake of the paranoid's bodies being discovered, compounded by their consistent failure to conceive a child. After the documentary crew leaves, a stranger, Wilson Miles, arrives at Mia's door and says, "She finally let me go," before shooting himself in the head. And that was almost at the point where I was going to grab my phone just to make sure that, I was, nothing interesting was happening on my phone, but I was like, what's going on here? Bam! I was like, oh shit! I was I felt like I got thrown out of my chair when that happened. I was like, okay. And then it continuously gripped me with the cinematography that was kind of alluring, I would say. And from that point on, with the exception of maybe like 20 minutes in the middle where I felt like it was a little bit rocky with the pacing, it really kept my attention and it really kept me on edge. I was like, shit, what's about to happen next? But also there was this part of my filmmaking brain that I was like, why does she still have Miles's blood on her face after like the police have come through, after everyone has come and checked on everybody? Like, she's just sitting there with the tape that Taryn had in his hand that she didn't give to the police for whatever fucking reason. I don't really remember. She didn't really feel like she could like trust them, the authorities, to do the job or whatever. Jeremy Johns, I think, said it best that she needed another person to be going on this journey with, whether it was her husband, whether it was the other detective, but she needed somebody else to work with. And I don't want to rewrite the script or anything like that, but I do felt like I felt like that would have been very helpful for the ultimate, not just the ending, but kind of going through the story and having someone to kind of bounce ideas off of why does it make sense for her not to do this? Why does she not give the tape? Why is she still have blood on her face? Like, why is she going to a spooky prison or an abandoned amusement park in the dark or in very low lighting by herself? There's multiple times I was like, she obviously is constrained with her husband, but I still felt like it would have even been more interesting to have her with her husband there or something. I don't know if necessarily she needed like another quote unquote man in her life to, help her through this. Maybe it was another female detective, whatever. I just definitely felt the push and pull of the constraint of her watching a whole lot of found footage, and us are just like, we're like skimming through it. We're skimming through it, scrubbing through the footage. And for the most part, I really like the shot selection that they chose. So anyways, yeah, Miles shows up at the door right as the documentary is over, and she says, and he goes, blam, blows his brains out, says, she finally let me go before shooting himself in the head. Mia retrieves a mini DV tape labeled Shelby Oaks from Miles's body. She withholds the tape from the police, assuming that they will reason that Miles murdered Riley and close the case. I don't know if that was exactly established. I'm seeing that on Wikipedia here. But she plays the tape, which reveals the paranoids investigating the prison along with an abandoned amusement park. I had mixed feelings about how much time we were actually watching the paranoids go through this entire ordeal. Many times I was like, why are they going through this to this degree? It just felt like they were putting themselves in kind of extreme danger or just in uncomfortable positions. And it definitely felt like a segment of the movie where I was like, we are sitting here for like 5 to 10 minutes. I don't, maybe it was 5 to 10 minutes, maybe at least 5 minutes of just watching her watch this tape. And I was like, this is kind of a lot. And I was just like, all right, we need to pick up the pace here. And I understand for different reasons that we're just kind of sitting there watching along with her, almost like we are the other detective with her. That's, that could be another way to look at it. But also, I will say the perspective of this movie is constantly changing, which it feels like we're basically we're going from the documentary perspective and watching the actual reel of them being interviewed to the perspective of being with her to the third party perspective of watching her. It feels like there's definitely different perspectives in this movie that I haven't really been able to kind of grasp until maybe articulating it now. And I think the perspective changing makes it feel a little jarring for the movie's sake. And it feels a little bit more chopped up from like chapters as opposed to being a cohesive, fluent story. And I think that one of the cleanest changes of perspective was going from the documentary style at the beginning to going to like the contemporary standard Hollywood movie making, when there is a flip of we're outside the house and then it goes from like a afternoon to evening time and just kind of goes like that. And so kind of in the same way how I changed my clothes and whatnot, I felt like it was a cool transition, but I don't always feel like the movie made the attempt to show how the perspective was changing in that way. And I think that was one of the better times that it shifts perspective there. But once it changes, I feel like it changes again, sort of in the third act about, all right, who are we following now? Because it almost feels like we're following Riley this entire time. So perspective changing, pacing issues. There are some things about this that I was like, it's rocky. It's rocky. And sometimes you might not see this stuff probably till like the second to last cut or, more like in the edit and stuff like that. So I'm curious what other people are thinking about this movie as well. So y'all let me know in the comments section. Let's continue on real quick. She withholds the tape from the police, blah, blah, blah. She plays the tape, which reveals the paranoids investigating the prison along with an abandoned amusement park. And she's just, she's upset this entire time. And there's so many characters that just shake. Like when people are like, watching things, when she's watching something, she's shaking. This old lady in the third act, she's like shaking. Like everyone is like very like shaky. So I just wanted to like point that out. I noticed that I was like, there's like a lot of close-ups of people just like so gotta be scared. Mia later sees a dog with glowing eyes outside her home. Mia interviews the former prison warden who describes the riot that erupted after Miles. A violent offender arrived. Despite a computer malfunction opening every cell, Miles stood in place and stared out his window instead of leaving. It was a very, I think this is told by Keith David, and he sells it. Like, you can tell the caliber of actor that Keith David is, because he comes on there and he doesn't even leave his seat And he's probably a third of this movie's budget sitting there just in that seat, but he sells the shit out of it. They have his voice over the main trailer as well. They knew what they were doing by getting a big actor for very limited time. It's kind of similar to what the Ethan Hawke character is a little bit in Black Phone 1 and 2, except I think they might have even had a bigger deal. He's in way more scenes is what I'm saying. But I'm not sure what Keith David was paid on this. So let's see. Miles looking creepy, and he's got those big old glowing eyes looking all crazy. Mia finds a book in Riley's belongings describing demonic symbols. And so there's a lot of like symbolism of cult imagery, that type of stuff. Similar to kind of like what we saw in, there was an earlier horror film of people being stuck to one another. I won't even mention exactly the name because I don't want to spoil anything, but there's kind of similarities in that way where you're like, oh, there's an overarching evil entity community thing kind of going on. And people will say that it's a little bit like a Hereditary light. And sure, maybe there is. I think there's a lot of different types of horror that are sprinkled in here that I can't even name all off the top of my head. Rosemary's Baby, I think, is in here. It's been years since I've seen that, but I saw Psycho. I really saw Psycho in this because I feel like you find out that's what's happening. There's a brains behind the operation of what's happening here, and so let me see. So she finds the demonic symbols after doing more research and learning about the parasitic incubi and hellhounds. Mia becomes convinced Riley was a victim of the occult ritual. Exasperated by Mia's obsession with solving Riley's case, Robert leaves her. Yeah, in my opinion, I did not think that she should have been left at that point, but I understand why they needed her to be alone for the rest of the film. Mia goes to prison. Mia goes to the prison. By the way, this is the prison from Shawshank Redemption that they shot in. Really cool. And finds Miles's former cell. Again, I'm not sure why she would go to this at night, why it makes any sense for any of that to happen. I was just like, okay. Let me see. I was going to see if I could find it on here. See if it pops up here in a second on the trailer. Here. This is a shot inside of the trailer. Inside of the trailer, inside of the prison. So, I mean, the imagery they're getting with it is really cool, really spooky. And it's like overall, I wouldn't want to be there in the day. Why the hell would you want to go at night and go with one flashlight? I would have lights glued to my head, cameras all over me. I'd be like, y'all ain't gonna do me like this. Y'all are not gonna get me like this. And so, anyways, let me see if they have a shot of the outside of that. Whoops. Let me see. I will say that I think the trailer is a little bit trying to oversell it, in my opinion. There's like an oversell of what's happening, and they show entirely way too much in the trailer. I'm trying not to show y'all too much if you haven't seen the movie yet. But anyways, so she goes to the amusement park in the distance before being attacked by a hellhound. It is a jump scare that I don't know entirely needs to be here. I felt like they could have probably done this. I wish they had done it a little bit differently with a different type of jump scare. I'm not even sure a jump scare was actually needed because I feel like sometimes jump scares can be a little bit, not cheap, but it's like, oh, it's nothing. Oh, it's just a hellhound. Oh, it's that. Like, I'm not really, I don't have the answer. Like I said, I'm not the writer. I'm not the director. I'm not doing all this. But I probably would have tweaked it. It wasn't my favorite part. Some of the jump scares, I was like, I don't even know what the fuck happened. It was just like a really loud noise. I was like, whoa. The score. I wanted to just mention the score by James Burkholder and the Newton Brothers. I really like the score. The score. I can't think of the score off the top of my head or hum it or anything, but I was pretty entranced, and I like what they used. So yeah. Okay, so she is she sees the ruins of the amusement park in the distance before being attacked by a hellhound. So it is very much like Scooby-Doo, gotta follow the mystery, gotta follow the clues. She flees to the amusement park where she encounters another hellhound and a dilapidated cabin. So naturally, like anyone that sees a dilapidated cabin, you have to go up and check out what it is, especially when it's like 11 in the evening. The cabin's elderly occupant, Norma. Wasn't Norma the mother in Psycho? Well, I can't remember the mother's name in Psycho, but I'm about to look it up. Hold on. Let me check real quick. I'm like, maybe it wasn't no. Well, I mean that has to be like a playoff of Norman Bates, right? I mean, I really thought that was like Hitchcock, tip of the hat kind of thing. Um, yeah, I don't know if that's. Yeah, I don't know. Hold on. Let me see what I heard. Yeah, Norma. It's Norma. What'd I tell you? Oh my gosh. Okay, so it is Norma, and yeah, so it's a tip of the hat to the Hitchcock uh, fanboys and fangirls out there, and I was like, all I could think of was this is 210% Psycho on the second half with a sprinkle of some sort of demonic cult energy in this. But I don't really have the movie that would be about. I guess, was that Rosemary's Baby? I don't know. But so yeah, Norma invites Mia inside. And it is legitimately one of the creepiest parts of the movie. I was like, oh shit. Like there's like times where you're like in the shoes of Riley. She's walking up and this creepy lady standing outside in the middle of nowhere. She's like, come on in, like shaking her, trying to get her to shake her hand in the dark. And she's in just a silhouette of Norma, and she's kind of small, and she's got this like weird little walk that she later just completely like gets out of. I mean, it is, it's a performance. And I was like, wow, this is, I think the third half of this movie, with the exception of the very, very end, is almost right on par for what I was looking for this movie. It's the right amount of suspense. It's the right amount of weird. Anybody that remembers Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there's a scene where Brad Pitt is like on the site of the Manson cult compound, and it is one of the most uneasy, unnerving situations that you've seen in a movie, and it feels like they kind of had that same situation here. It's like, oh, don't go in there. And Riley is like looking at the nasty ass mold that's on the outside of the house. She's like looking at what is possibly bloodstains on the door that is going into the house, and she's like, yeah, I'll come on in, I'll have a cracker, It's like there was no legit reason that I think any plausible person, man, woman, dog, beast, Terran, the demon guy, would have even said, oh, hell no to that. I was like, what the fuck is the thinking here? So anyways, there's like a number of red flags before she even gets inside, and you're like, oh shit, this is a bad idea. Anyways, so the cabin's elderly occupant, Norma, invites Mia inside. In the cabin, Mia finds... she's like, Norma is acting all old and crackly and, decrepit and, do you want a cracker? And like in sort of being nice to her, but also being very just strange. And she's like,
walking to the other room and going and sitting in a weird fucking couch where there's no other chairs or nothing else in the room, and it's just like an awkward the reasoning of why people are going to where they are feels like they need to be in the positions they are. Like, Norma needs to go sit in that seat because why? It's weird and creepy, even though there's no natural reason of why besides she's an elderly lady, that would happen. To go sit in a living room that was facing, it felt like, all right, we have where the people need to be, where the actors need to be, but it felt like the writing only did about 2/3 of the writing, or 2/3 of the way there, of why Riley would be looking at the nastiest house she's seen in probably her entire life and decide that it's okay and safe to go in there, especially when she thinks that there might be this might be a murder suspect of some sort, kidnapping at the least, as well as just like, different aspects, like red flag, red flag, red flag, nasty ass food, nasty ass house, nasty ass Norma. It was like, there's enough here that you're like, get me out of here. So, Mia finds Norma goes in the other room, and she of course has to, she's going to get some food or something, like going to get some crackers or something, because Riley says, this place is fucking weird. And Riley has this knife that she takes just in case just in case she has to fend off herself. And when they're sitting there, they're like, looking like, I think they have like an awkward ass conversation. And eventually, like Riley like confronts her pretty quickly once she finds the photographic evidence that Norma is Miles's mother and that Miles kidnapped Riley. I mean, I was like, oh shit. Like, when she was going through the photo album, I know it's kind of convenient for plot purposes of like, oh shit, looking through, oh my God, she was kidnapped. Oh my goodness, she was like, it gets dark. Miles apparently is like raping this Riley for like years on end, and you see them having to bury the baby graves or whatever the hell is going on there. And you're just like, oh fuck, this is really fucked. It got really dark at the I was gonna say the third quarter of this. Yeah, if you want to call it a football game, then it was, American football game. Then third quarter got really fucking dark, and so, yeah. Under the influence of Norma, a follower of Incubus, I guess, Taryn, Miles repeatedly raped Riley in effort to conceive a child until, after many miscarriages, Riley finally gave birth to a healthy baby boy. And the boy, I believe, is within like a year and a half, 2 years old. I don't know, something like that. Mia texts Robert to send police to her location and demands that Norma tell her where Riley is. I mean, this is at the point where she has that like knife out, and she's like, pointing it at Norma. She's like, "I'm here for my sister," kind of thing. I'm about to cut a bitch. I'm about to cut a normal bitch, and so, yeah. Norma leads her into the basement where Riley is imprisoned. She reveals, it's in the trailer, she reveals that, there's a giant rug that is hiding the basement stuff, and the basement stuff happens to be a giant underground tunnel where her sister's being held. And there's also creaking of the floor upstairs, but I'm not really sure how that happened. There's a baby upstairs, but there's creaking of the floor. I'm not even sure. Is Taryn upstairs? Is Taryn, there's a point where Riley is like trying to figure out who is upstairs, and I'm not even sure who's upstairs. Except maybe Taryn might even be bunking or got an Airbnb situation at Norma's place. Maybe Norma would be baking some goodies or something. I don't know. So yeah, you can see right there where her sister is clearly being held, and anybody with eyes that had watched this would be like, all right, so that's where her sister's being held, which I wish they had not shown that in the trailer. But anyways, Yeah, so Norma leads her into the basement. I don't know anybody in their right fucking mind that would go down that basement where Riley is imprisoned. And Riley, I was like, is Riley okay? I mean, obviously she's not okay, but she's, prisoner status, 12 years locked up, prisoner of Terran. I was like, oh, Jesus, this is going to be fucked, trying to get her in some therapy. Um, Mia frees her, but rather than leave, Riley seizes a fire poker and goes upstairs. Mia follows her and witnesses Norma incapacitate Riley. She hits her with the force. She hits her with the Terran force. So, and like literally, this is when the shit gets crazy. Is she's like strung up, like telekinesis style, can't fucking move because Norma's using the fucking force, the evil Terran force, and she's like shing, and yeah, I was like, oh shit, what are we gonna do here? Like, a knife isn't gonna do anything here. I mean, she's got the force, and she's got both the sisters using telekinesis, and she's Norma is slitting her wrist, throwing all over the goddamn baby, like making a fucking mess. God dang, I was like, good God, Stuckman, come on now, I don't know, don't not the baby, not like this, and so yeah, so Norma incapacitates Riley before performing a blood ritual over Riley's newborn. I'm not 100% sure what was happening here because at many points I was like, okay, so she's got Taryn on her side, she's got the demon in her, she got the devil up in her, girl. I was just like, this is crazy. Um, Mia glimpses Taryn, and Norma dies from blood loss, and Mia lovingly greets the infant as police arrive. Um, mm, yeah, so Riley and the baby are taken to the hospital and discharged soon after. That night, Riley is not okay. Riley attempts to smother the baby. Similar, I think, is that a Rosemary's Baby reference? I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it. That was a crazy fucking movie too. Until Mia stops her. Like Mia's like walking in the door, and Riley's got this like pillow like right over the baby crib, and Mia's like, "What are you doing?" And Riley's like, "Nothing." Like, bitch, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, anybody with a brain would have been like, all right, this girl is not staying in this room. She might even not even be staying in a fucking house. You better lock. I don't know what you need to do. You need to do something with this Riley girl because she is not good at this point. And seeing the dichotomy of how Riley is acting in the found footage film in the beginning versus the very end, good acting. I thought it was good. That was good. So Riley, yeah, there is a. So Riley attempts to smother the baby until Mia stops her. Though Riley insists that the baby is possessed and must die. I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe it isn't. It's hard to tell. Baby's the baby. I didn't see the glowy eyes on it, so I thought he was good. In the ensuing struggle, through the entire movie, we are seeing the window start to crack in different places, and you're like, is this like a smoking gun kind of situation? And it sort of kind of is. There's a whole thing of like Taryn being on the second story level of being able to see what's going on inside the house. Like, ooh, what's going on in here? Like, ooh, what's going on in the second story? And so I think it was sort of like supposed to be like foreshadowing of like the window is going to be the death of Riley in some way. It wasn't even the death. It was more like the almost death because Mia accidentally, she's like trying to grab the pillow from Riley, and Riley falls out of the window. And this is where this is going to lose a lot of people. She survives the fall, but is surrounded by random ass hellhounds that come out of all different areas. And then she starts just getting devoured. Just yeah, 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 yeah. And I could not, for the life of me, I still can't figure out why this character deserved it. Maybe there was something at the beginning. I didn't feel like, normally it's like, all right, maybe this wasn't exactly a good person, or maybe she had done some things to deserve it. I didn't see a reason why Riley deserved to be uh, you know, kidnapped, raped, then she's like raped by the devil or something like that, and then she's like thrown out a window on accident by her sister, and then eventually eaten by hellhounds. Like, is that five things, six things? Like, I couldn't think of why she deserved all of that. Like, oh my god, like what the hell did she do? um, so yeah, she survives the fall, is surrounded by hellhounds, devoured. I don't think the hellhounds thing or even the entire fall even makes sense to me. I would have had some sort of different ending here. I'm not exactly sure. To me, I did not understand why. Somebody in the comment section, somebody's going to explain it to me. Maybe I'll come to the decision after I watch it again. I do want to watch it again just to kind of see what I missed, including the Terran spotting at like the 30-minute mark where I was like, I blinked for half a second and fucking missed him. But yeah, so Mia realizes that Riley's childhood belief that something was watching her was actually Terran. Okay, kind of big surprise. Observing both Brendan's sisters, intending one to bear his child and the other to raise it. Terran, okay, so maybe that seems a little bit like explained here, but I don't remember seeing that or hearing that in the movie. Taryn appears behind her and grasps her shoulders. Mia's eyes glow and she screams. So she is now, she's like, before all this happened, she's like looking out the window and she's like, oh, damn, Riley's getting fucking eaten. And like just getting torn apart by the hellhounds. And then Taryn appears behind her. Creepy figure, kind of already iconic. I wouldn't mind seeing Taryn make another appearance in another film. I think it's a interesting concept of having Taryn. Is it Tehran? I don't know if I'm saying it right. I'm just calling him Taryn. Sounds more casual. He's a first name basis. But anyways, Taryn appears behind her, grasps her shoulders, and then Mia's eyes glow and she screams. Boom, cut to credits. I was seriously, it was me and some other random guy at like 2 p.m. on the Friday that it came out. And I was like, I had to pull out my phone to make sure that I had watched the whole movie because several places I saw that it was an hour and 40 minutes. I think this movie was probably an hour and 20 minutes and then 10 minutes of credits. But I was like, did I watch the whole thing? I seriously was looking at my phone for 5 minutes, kind of like dumbfounded, like what the fuck did I just see? And I was expecting more things to kind of follow up on this film. So I was like, I guess I want more. If it's leaving me in that position, I was like, okay, you've told me an interesting story, and I guess I'm here to want more. It's not like filmmaker's fault or anything like that, but it was like, oh wow, this was in most of it. I was like, oh wow, I was pretty gripped, and then at the end where I thought the entire Norma sequence was going to give us an extra like 30 minutes at the back end. I think it honestly could have had another 30 minutes on this, and we could have seen what happened with Mia and now being taken over by Taryn or something like that, or an extra 10 minutes. But I'm sure for budget reasons we couldn't do that. So with saying that, I was like, oh, damn, I guess I do want kind of more. Maybe some people are going to watch this and say this doesn't feel like a complete story. I definitely think it does. It leaves us in a place where it's one of those movies like, oh, that was fucking creepy, right? Closes book and never goes back to it again. Or, oh, this was fucking creepy, right? Let's see what happens. And I kind of feel like this movie could have a second part to it. I'm not sure if I want a Shelby Oaks 2. I don't know if I want like the Adventures of Tehran. I'm not really sure what I want. I want them to take their time with the script. If they've already got something in there, then, let's see what you got. But with saying that, I think we did a pretty good breakdown of Shelby Oaks. I did kind of want to go a little bit more in depth on this to kind of give it more of a fair shakeout. There's several things that happen in the movie that I don't necessarily agree with. I was surprised at some of the horror at the beginning, people's faces getting mauled and eaten by hellhounds and, crazy people showing up and whatnot. But I think there is enough of a interesting horror film here that would benefit from repeat viewings and possibly going and hearing. I would love to hear all the different movies that Stuckman and I think her name is Samantha Elizabeth, what movies they were really gearing off of. Obviously, I think some people were talking about Blair Witch. I would say Psycho. It says Hereditary. I say a little bit of Hereditary. Hereditary was just another level of depraved. I was like depressed during Hereditary. I never felt like depressed during this movie, and I'm not really sure. That's not really a failing of the movie. It's just kind of a ridiculous premise to an extent. And I'm like, okay, this is something. My biggest flaws were some of the character choices just felt like they had to happen because of the script. They were doing things because, they have to go down the hallway. They have to watch the scary tape for 10 minutes. Her having blood on her face is going to be the biggest thing that I think everyone's going to say, like, why the fuck does she still have blood on her face? Like this is well after, it's like her having blood on her face right here in this scene is like, I don't know, 12 hours after her witnessing the death of Miles, and Miles literally shooting himself in the face in front of her, and her just like, ah, like, I was like, oh shit, like, I was like, are you going to clean that up kind of thing? But, there's really cool, there's really interesting cinematography here, cool shot selections. I think there's enough good here, and I'm safe to say that I didn't feel like I was wasting my time. There's some horror films that feel like that was a waste of time. I did not feel, I did not feel that here. But, with saying that, there's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of things that aren't working here, but I want to be fair. 6 out of 10. There's enough here, and I still wanted more. If I wanted more, that tells me that I was interested enough in the story. I was not like, I want to go walk out kind of thing. I was like, this is, we got something here. We got kind of a director that really knows what he's doing, and he only has barely $3 million. I don't see any marketing for this. It seems like it all might be word of mouth. Give it a try. Watch it with some friends. Have a little drunk screening if you want. Hell, by the time of Halloween, just next week, you'll probably be able to rent it anyway. So I'm gonna lightly recommend it, depending on how much of a horror fan you are. Check out Shelby Oaks 2025. Let me know what you thought about the review. Look at our podcast on every social media you got: Twitch, YouTube, live on Twitch, VODs on YouTube. We got shorts coming out on there as well, and we do immediate reviews on Blue Sky as well. So, check out the links below in the description. Let me know what you thought about the podcast. Let me know what you thought about the review. Try to be fair with it, given, kind of loosely involved in it. We're not like we didn't put money towards the crowdfunding of it, but we're still like very supportive of Stuckman, and we're looking forward to see what else he can do next. All right, y'all, look at our podcast. Take it easy. Watch out for fucking Taryn. That boy just be showing up out of nowhere, uninvited and shit like that. Man, you about to get slapped, man.